And I just, it was so weird, the timing, because it's the race, but he had just gone anyway, I thought it was him. Yeah. Yeah, no, they were talking about the horse race.
Especially in the muds.
In the mud.
In the mud
Yeah.
days, you got the
Yeah.
supposedly.
Yeah, my family used to like the dog. Funny story, about 50 years ago, my father was down in the brother, she was in war or something. This woman was
Everybody's here, ready to go? All right. Welcome to May 22nd, 2024 School Committee meeting. Salute the flag. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Bahu? Here. Mr. Conway?
Here.
Mr. Rossi?
Here.
Ms. Doherty?
Here.
Mr. Lay?
Here.
Ms. Martin?
Here.
Mayor Rourke?
Here.
7 present.
New business 3.1, the budget transfer. Need a motion to approve a budget transfer of $1,592,000. Motion by Dominic, Mr. Lay, second by Mr. Bahu. Questions, comments? Roll call.
Mr. Bahu?
Yes.
Mr. Conway?
Yes.
Mr. Rossi? Ms. Doherty?
Yes.
Mr. Lay?
Yes.
Ms. Martin? Mayor Rourke?
Yes.
7 yeas.
Unfinished business 4.1, public budget hearing. Registered speakers, I guess.
Mr. Gomez?
Sure, yes, sir.
All right, so, hello? There's a green light on it. All right. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Oscar Gomez. I am the Director of Policy and Advocacy for Fortaleza, located at 463 Merrimack Street here in Lowell. So I'm here to speak on the proposed organizational chart and the reduction of assistant superintendent positions. I firmly believe that actions speak louder than words. What we do carries far more weight than what we say. I urge you to consider the message you are sending to the entire district, leaders, principals, teachers, parents, students, when equity is up for debate. What message are you sending to one of the most diverse school districts in the state of Massachusetts? What message are you sending to students who still face inequities in this district? What message are you sending by eliminating the equity office, therefore diminishing the capacity of equity efforts? Equity is based on a foundation that all students can learn when they receive the supports that they need. The public needs access to the Public Works report, which was cited as supporting the proposed options in the superintendent's report. As stated in option 5, most of the peer districts in the Public Works report do not have high-level equity positions, but based on my research, I found several districts that are comparable in terms of diversity, that have a chief equity officer and an equity department. To list a few: Cambridge, Boston, Worcester, Framingham, Brockton, Chelsea, right? Those are all districts that have a chief equity officer and an equity department. The public should have access to that report, so we can further, assess what districts were analyzed during this report. As I emphasized last week, I want to stress that Lowell Public Schools needs to be the district that does things differently. A start is by sending a message to the Lowell community, one of the most diverse districts in the state of Massachusetts, at a time when equity is under attack across the country. Lowell Public Schools sees the importance and values equity for all students. This can be demonstrated by maintaining the chief equity officer at the assistant superintendent level to oversee the equity team. This team can then continue its efforts alongside parents, community partners, the HSST, students, and other stakeholders. The Chief Equities Officer's role is to ensure that all policy and practices across departments are equitable. Without this role, the efforts will greatly be diminished, ultimately impacting students in ways we may not be able to identify. Recent motions from both the school committee and city council have involved equity and diversity concerns, yet equity remains on the table for further discussion. What you decide tonight will send a message to the Lowell community, including the Latino community. It is up to you to determine what message your action will convey, right? The community is watching. Thank you.
Thank you.
Stacy Thompson.
Can you guys hear me? I'm not sure if you can hear me or not, because I'm not hearing good feedback from you all.
Yes.
Okay, excellent. Good evening, school committee members, mayor, superintendent, and all concerned Lowellians. My name is Stacy Thompson, 45 Ursula Street, Lowell. I did not expect to be so involved in matters of school committee as my term ended. However, here we are, and here I am. Can you hear me? You can? Okay. I've always shared the importance of a voice and never letting someone minimize the importance of you using it. The district and my hopes for each student give reason for my presence. Equity, excellence, and empowerment. 3 words, but much more. 3 guiding principles that are to be the North Star of this district and a compass by which the district decisions should be centered. The consistent direction we are heading. I fear this budget and the reorganization chart that we have been presented are representative of a few wrong turns in the road, and if we don't pull out the compass now, we would become seriously lost. The priority of members of the last administration was to reinvest in the student support function, and the district commitment was to work of family engagement, universal pre-K, inception and rollout, as well as specific equity work as it pertains to language access or our differently abled students, as well as training among principals and staff. There are several things which I could speak about in regards to budget concerns, but let's start at the beginning of the district standards, which is with equity. If I'm reading these budget-centric materials correctly, the first of the 3 priority areas, beliefs or standards, is on the auction block to be stripped bare and sold for the opportunity to free up $35,000. If equity is a district priority, how is it the office being diminished from assistant superintendent to chief to director? Now, math was never my strongest suit in school, as I'm admittedly more of an ELA girl, but something isn't adding up when it is even a suggestion to minimize this office. To some, the action will be portrayed or cloaked as bottom line, mere dollars, but it does not make sense. Beyond the optics being horrible, the intentionality of dismantling this department and the work while simultaneously demoting the current occupant of this role is tone deaf, disturbing, and simultaneously, is also frightening. And whether that is the intention now or whether it's for later, it's still all bad. But currently you have only one multilingual person of color functioning in the role of assistant superintendent, chief of equity. One person on the administration with lived and academic experience in the area of equity, an area that the superintendent has purported as a priority area. Now, let's be honest, equity is hard work, and lots of people balk at it because they don't get it, they don't see the importance, or they flat out just don't want to do it. Well, as adults working in the district, it isn't about us, but students first. Each person who signs a contract to work in Lowell Public Schools signs on to be committed to what is best for their very multiracial, multilingual, differently abled population. That is the pledge you make. Some may sadly say things like, well, what would you prefer, equity or students who can read at level? Well, to them, I would say students that are differently abled or students that are Black, as examples, can't take off or put on those things. Yet they still want to feel safe, included like they belong. They want to exist in a space that is established of trust, which allows them to build the comfort that is needed to learn. As someone with prior teaching and current training experience, that importance does not change as the years go by. So to answer the question of which would you prefer, equity over insert any training or skill or learning or skill, it is that without equity, which is clear, unrelenting, and prioritized, commitments to equity, the learnings will be flat and unattainable. If you want statistics and metrics to trend upwards, you don't do that by saying, I don't see you. Last, in the report that is stated, none of the options that were recommended by Public Works Review of central office functioning. So that means none of the things that were suggested are in the current suggestions. So what I want to know is this: what are the suggestions that were made regarding the Office of Equity in that Public Matters evaluation? And the reason for attaining this review was because no one in the central office had the prior experience of reorganizing at that level, as it is entirely different than what may happen in one school as a principal. So if the professional suggestions are not being followed, who is offering the expertise that is necessary to continue to drive the ship as we hope to avoid missteps of titanic proportion? Thank you.
Moving on. So now we're at the committee. We had to vote on a bottom line of suspense account, and we have to revisit the positions in that suspense account. Do you want to start with the assistant superintendents?
Do we have the materials? It's not the agenda.
I thought the next item was to discuss. It's not, it's motion.
I mean, it's all in the suspense account.
Right.
That's,
Right.
The response to your motion, is that what we discussed now?
There are a number of items in the suspense account.
So do we have the budget materials that we had, I'm going to rephrase that I had requested? Great. So just so we're clear, this is the current suspense account, and then do you also have the other positions that were returned that you had sent via email?
I put it in front of everyone.
Am I not seeing it? It wasn't in my pack.
I have an extra copy here. They're right here. And then-
Yeah, that one right there, fine.
Okay, I'm sorry. So we've got, this is what's currently in suspense, and then this is the email that had gone out.
This is the agenda.
Excuse me, Ms. Norton, this is a sequence that we're offering, but we don't have to follow that sequence, but this is your response was number one item, if you want to follow. Okay.
And that's what we have to talk about.
I'm sorry.
It's fine.
Not my agenda.
Chalet?
So as I remember that the last meeting we had, we voted line by line. We went to and I think we voted the first one already, and then we didn't have a chance to speak about the one after that. So I think when at the last meeting we voted to accept to reinstate district webmaster, and then we took the recess after that. So I guess it makes sense to continue for the next one.
So we had, right.
No, we have
So
to go with Ms. Martin's response.
Superintendent, go ahead.
Members, if I may, please, Ms. Sheehan and I worked to sequence what we believe is necessary to happen in this meeting. And the sequence was before you. Ms. Sheehan passed this out before the meeting started tonight. It begins with the first item, discussing cabinet level positions, followed by remaining suspense items, followed by the other positions that we need to make a decision on, and then the final, the bottom line. It's in front of you. It's numbers 1 through 4. We don't have to follow that order, but it's a suggested order. And regardless, I think we should agree on an order so that we know how we're going to follow the meeting. This is my suggestion, that we follow this order so we get through our business tonight.
Correct.
That's the number one.
And we have the motion response right in front of us. Yes, so, right. So if we have to start with that, we'll start with that. So we have a motion response by Ms. Martin. Mr. Skinner, you want to go through it first? The motion response?
Your response, not mine.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So Ms. Martin's motion asked, which passed, the committee asked for a plan to reduce the number of central office assistant superintendent level positions to 5 from 6. And so the motion response provides a series of options that are possible. it also has some commentary at the end of those regarding what I think are other items that should be considered, including what's in the Public Works report. I'll happy to take any further questions about that document or about the options that are listed in it.
Ms. Martin?
So having reviewed the response, I don't find any of them to be viable options. And I honestly don't find them terribly responsive. So I think that leaves us in a position where I think the body voted to eliminate an assistant superintendent level. We charged the superintendent to come up with a viable solution. Most of these solutions require it, maybe in name eliminating a position, but then backfilling 2 or 3 positions to somehow make it palatable. So I think the overall mission of the motion that was made and passed was to eliminate that, one position and be able to reallocate these duties across in a more balanced way. I don't feel any of the responses provide that. My personal approach would be to give it back to the administration to do the job, to come up with what their solid recommendation is. I'm one person, I'm one vote, so it's going to come down to the committee. And I think we now need to have a fairly full-blown conversation about whatever recommendations we collectively want to make that can help us get to a final conclusion. But I offered my solution. I don't think it was accepted, so I think that's where I stand. I don't feel like this was a response.
Superintendent?
I think it's possible, and it's my opinion, that I don't mind how many assistant superintendent positions there are. If you take the suggestions in that were given in the motion response, and if you combine 2 or 3 of them together, you'd actually come to a structure that has just 3. The current one has been counted to have 6. We have other districts that we're being compared to by Public Works that have up to 13 reports to the superintendent between executive directors, deputy, and assistant superintendent, and so on. I don't mind what number we settle on. I really don't. I don't think the committee actually minds so much either, so much as you want what's fair and right for our community, and you want our school system to work well, you want it to be efficient, you want, I believe, to use the funds that we've been given to use correctly. We have it before us, and the committee has seen this Public Works report. The committee commissioned that report for $68,000. Should we not pay attention to it? I don't agree with all the recommendations in that report. I'd argue against some of them, and I believe the committee might as well. But should we not attend to what is being given to us as like expert advice? I am putting before you, at great strain, 5 options that I don't particularly agree with, but I am honoring the school committee's request for me to do so. I am not going to propose to the committee a model for central office that won't work. In the past, the committee has chosen to reorganize central office based on the recommendation of the past superintendent, and then complained many times about the lack of student support services, for example. We had, to my way of thinking, a reasonable consensus on this particular chart that we were working on until it was announced that Ms. Desmond had been given a new position, and that was an opportunity to look at it again. I agree with all of that. And I'm putting forward to you what I believe is sensible and reasonable for the district, and also what will help the district to be successful. It exists on the chart that you've received in the past. It's that colorful one that looks like this, and that's my recommendation. It's close to, it's Public Works light. I can quote you from other districts what they have in those various positions. I have some examples in front of me. I believe this is a sensible plan.
Yeah. Ms. Doherty, then Ms. Rossi.
Thank you, and I believe that the superintendent is right when he says we should look at the report and take its guidance, think about it, and I have done that, both the full report and the executive summary a couple of times. And right out of the gate, I was very disappointed to find out that they did not really look at finance or the operations roles. The focus was on curriculum, the need for student services, and the equity office. When this committee and the prior committee knows full well that many of our problems, and the reason we did an outside investigation with BHPK was because of concerns around HR. And that my concern, which I have told the superintendent many times, was to pull human resources out of operations. And when we have this moment in time where we have 3 openings, and the opportunity to look at what was done, I think, in haste with the previous administration. We went from 3 assistant superintendents to 5. We totally blew up student services, and if you read the report, they agree. You cannot have student services smattered around here and there, and nobody knows who's really responsible for it. We have not been providing those supports to our students when they most needed them during this, pandemic. I would agree with my colleague that I did not find this response to really be in the spirit of what we were trying to do. I certainly know I have had multiple conversations with the superintendent, even to the point of saying, figure out where HR can go. Maybe it's a direct report to you. And to the earlier speaker, I looked at comparison districts. This idea of combining finance and operations as one role, what we used to have, is found elsewhere in many other districts. Worcester, Fitchburg. I mean, you can always find examples of people who do or don't do what you're looking for. And I think that I'm okay with kicking that can down the road, but I am not going to support this proposal that you put together. I think you've got special education still under academics, not with staff council, and wasn't the recommendation in the report that I saw. And I understand if you look at the recommendations, some of them are like, as the superintendent said, create multiple assistant superintendents. Some of the districts that we looked at had people at executive director level. So it's not going to be, it's an easy, this is the quick fix answer, but I do think it's important for the community and for the superintendent to hear that, as a body, we said we'd like to try to keep to 5 assistant superintendents. And how do we do that? And maybe the recommendation is we can't do that right now, but to look at some of the inequities and the things that were not covered. Why wasn't operations, why wasn't the stuff about HR, the problems we've had? I mean, they did point out a couple of things. I think one of the commendations was about the teacher academy. And they're doing a very good job at the teacher academy because we have 30% of our current teaching staff are under emergency licensure, which was one of the issues we brought up under the prior administration. So I don't feel this is really your concerted effort to give us something that we could work with. I don't know that I would say go back, because I know we need to hire a finance person. We need to hire a student services person. We need to hire a curriculum person, and we need to do those things. But we've been asking to discuss this. You knew when you took the interim role that reorganization was going to be a priority.
The motion was to go from 6 to 5, correct? And that's where we get the response on. Mr. Superintendent?
I need to explain, Ms. Doherty, there's a couple of things you said that are really important. When Public Works responded to the request for proposal, they sent us a proposal for $150,000. I discussed it with the school committee. It came up on the floor for a vote. They offered to do the student support services and CSO and CAO positions for $68,000. I told the committee that at the time. People thought, I think many of the members of the committee thought it was an exorbitant price, $68,000, not to mind $150,000 to include the other offices. At that time, we were having an audit of the finance office, and the HR office was under investigation. And I believe the committee chose at that time to go with the $68,000 bid because it was less than half of that 150, but it included the other office that weren't already being audited. I don't remember everything about the conversation, so I'm not pretending that my recollection is exact, but I was transparent with the committee, some of whom responded and said, Mr. Skinner, why don't you do the reorganization yourself without spending money outside? The members voted for what we agreed to. I'm not responsible for that, Ms. Doherty. And as far as it goes, I spent a considerable amount of time on this motion response, and I included in it the very ideas that I received from committee people, one of whom suggested strongly that we combine business and operations, and that is in there for that reason. The very proposal that you're discussing and that you're critiquing on, right? That is in there as an option because it was suggested to me.
Not taking HR out of operations, that's not.
Okay, that's a secondary
That
point.
was my
So,
key point.
thank you. Ms. Doherty, on this chart, and I put it in the motion response, the motion response was about how many assistant superintendents, and the motion was to go down to 5. I do not mind, within those 5 offices, which of the other departments belongs where. I explained in the motion response, we discussed it as a cabinet when we came up with the first suggestion. Ms. Desmond, for example, is familiar with special education and wanted to keep that in her department, even though it could belong in student support services. Now Ms. Desmond might be leaving, and we might find a student support services assistant with great special ed background. We move it in there. That's not a problem to do. The motion response was based on how many assistant superintendents we'd have, not which block belongs under which one. We can move those. That's not a problem.
Yes, I did not see one organizational chart that I viewed that suggested taking equity out of the organizational chart of assistant superintendents. I'm just having a hard time following. I don't know what you're talking about with like the $68,000 as opposed to $150,000, whatever you're talking about. But we're most likely losing a huge assistant superintendent in Miss Robin Desmond as chief academic officer. And I think that also needs to be a priority of how we're going to combine all of this to help guide us through this next school year without her, because she comes with a great deal of historical knowledge. And so I don't think any of us have said anything. We want to give you direction. Like, I would like to even ask you, what is your end in mind? Like, do you have a backwards design to all of this?
Sure.
And how you see this?
Thank you.
Because I'm just confused at this
Okay.
point.
So I want to respond to 2 things, and in particular to your question, Mr. Rossi. The first being about equity. Equity will not be diminished in my superintendency. Equity is not diminished in this plan. It's in the center, right below the superintendent. It's there because it should influence all the other departments. I won't go at length, but I could give you more about why that is there and what the intention is, about equity influencing our hiring, about equity influencing our curriculum, and so on. It is not diminished. Yes, it is a question. Well, what exactly belongs in that block is a question. Public Works comments on that, and I'll take the committee's recommendation on that. I've given you choices. One of the choices being, just here, that we maintain the equity office that we have today with the chief equity officer. That was the original plan. Mr. Rossi, do you care to ask that question again? I've lost it.
Yes, it was just, what is your end plan
Thank
with
you.
all of this,
Okay.
essentially?
Thank you.
What are you working towards in this schema of what you're trying to do, I guess, and that would help.
Thank you. Appreciate the question. So, and again, I want to give you as lengthy and detailed a response as you'd like, but I'll begin with a simple one, and then you can ask questions if you choose to. And I'd like to ask a question as well. I want central office to function in a very efficient manner, in a way that supports our schools. Central office doesn't need to exist in and of itself. I'm fond of telling you that I'm from Ireland. Do you know what central office looks like in Ireland, everybody? We don't have it. There's no central office in Ireland. There are schools and there's the state. Central office doesn't need to exist. I'm not fond of it. I'm not promoting it. I'm promoting what I believe is efficiency and effectiveness for our community. In drawing this up, Mr. Rossi, are my own philosophies and needs and desires represented in this document? Yes, of course they are. So are those of the school committee. If the school committee had not advocated so strongly for student support services, it probably wouldn't be here, because we actually have functioning student support services right now in various departments. It's in this map because the school committee requested it. So yes, I have an influence on it. Yes, the school committee influence is in here, and so is the Public Works report. So those are the three influences in there. I think it would be helpful to the committee, and certainly to me, if someone would explain what the intention is to reduce the number of assistant superintendents. In that response, you could actually reduce to 3 if you combine these areas. What is the intention you'd like me to get to if these responses are so disappointing? Help me and give me questions or guidance on how you'd like it to go.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, Superintendent. I just have a quick question on the chart here. When at the end of the last meeting, when Ms. Martin made the motion to reduce the assistant superintendent by 1 position, I thought to myself, when I go home, what am I going to do? If I were the superintendent, I look at this chart, what could I do to change? So through you, Superintendent, assistant support, student support services, you have all those positions underneath. Are those services new services, or they already exist and you just put them in there?
Right now, Mr. Lay, those services exist, but they don't exist in one office. Mental health is in academics, for example. Staff council is in operations, for example. They exist in different places, but they do exist.
Okay, so so thank you. So my read is that we're not creating any new services under this position. And also, what I notice is that we're not eliminating any positions. We are actually creating new positions. We are adding Title I director. We are adding the HR director. And we're also adding this new position, assistant support, student support services. So I understand those are positions needed, and it may be good to have in the future. I just feel that if I look at all of these 6 spots, I see that student support services is new, and we keep on saying that. Is that something that we really need to work on it right now, or can we delay 1 year or delay until next time to work on it? Because maybe we try to do so many things and at this moment, and the time does not give us the moment does not give us the time is not on our side, pretty much. So if we could have a little time, work on it, and next budget around we can put these student support services on. This way we satisfy Ms. Martin's motion to eliminate 1 position. So that's my take. I don't know what anybody have any comment on that.
I would have a comment if I could.
I'm sorry?
In response to Mr. Lay's suggestion, I would like to emphatically say we absolutely need an assistant superintendent of student services. That's what we had before, and I think we were providing those services to students much more effectively than we have over the last 4 years. We went from 3 assistant superintendents to 5, and one of the ways we did that was to break up the student services role, and as the superintendent said, put those programs in different offices. So there was no continuity, there was no consistency of service. That one, we've been talking about for years, that we need to bring that back. But one of the positions that was joined when we went from 3 to 5 was finance and operations. Became finance, one position, operations became another position, and HR was added to operations, which is not a typical arrangement. So I think that that is not an option that I would even remotely consider, to not have the student services piece. And if you read the report, they wholeheartedly talk about how we have to pull those resources together under leadership in order to really deliver. And there were a lot of other things that I think they demonstrated about how dysfunctional central office has become, in terms of the high percentage of respondents saying their questions don't get answered, their emails don't get returned. They talk to one person and get one answer, they talk to another person and get another answer. I think we went from 3 to 5 superintendents, and we became less service-oriented in terms of really doing what I think central office is there to do, which is support the schools and the work being done with our students.
Mr. Conway?
Yeah, thank you. And with all due respect, I don't think I could agree with my colleague, Mr. Lay, in regards to the delay, because I don't think that, can I finish? I don't think it is really advantageous to the system and to education to hold off at this point. And I also agree, student services, being in the system for so many years myself, student service is very important. It was extremely important. And it was a key position. And I think that's something we certainly need. And I think as time has gone on, we've really complicated situations. And I know that we're going back into history for a moment, but I do remember signing a contract when I became a teacher, and central administration was right downstairs. I believe it was either 1 or 2 rooms, and there were 4 people in total. So, and I think that when somebody said, well, that was a long time ago, yes, that's true. But we actually, and somebody said, well, look at the student body. I said, no, you're absolutely right. We actually had more kids in the high school at that point. We had about 3,700. There were well over 1,000 kids that graduated with me back a number of years ago. But the fact is that, because of laws and so forth, it certainly has complicated the process. So this isn't it's not an easy take. This is not an easy job, Mr. Superintendent, but I think that there is a clear message that's sent that, you need to go back to the drawing board. It's as simple as that. I think that's clear from a number of people. And I think you also need to make sure that student services is kept whole. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Sabahu?
It seems to me that we are here to find the best central organization chart that we could have. And the superintendent is looking to add assistant superintendent of student support services, which is vital because our family resource center needs help and needs guidance, and our equity director could very well be a part of our organization so that we can, and we plan on, and the superintendent plans on having the equity director be a part of student support services. So that would be extremely helpful. As far as assistant superintendent of academics and instruction, one of the very best is leaving our district. And when I look at the org chart of that person, there are 4 pages of what services that she covers. 4 pages. No one other of any of these assistant superintendents have that. So for us to consider trying to merge the assistant superintendent of academic and instruction to sort of layer and to make it a little bit more efficient, it seems like things may get lost and may realistically not be efficient. Assistant superintendent of school leadership, it really seems that we need someone to run all of our schools, our principals, to oversee our principals, because that's vital, because we need to know what's happening within each school. And if we don't know what's happening within each school, we are not going in the right direction. I'm seeing, and as far as, Mr. Lay, your recommendation, you're looking at as more administrative. Well, I have a sheet here that is cut, and we have cut much administration in our first meeting, and some of them were a deputy CFO, recruitment and onboarding, district early childhood expansion, and these things are, library media specialists, and we're saving millions of dollars there, millions of dollars. Social workers that are building based. We don't have the ESSER money available anymore, and that's really a difficult thing. But we do need to give our superintendent support. And if we don't give our superintendent support, and we really cut these offices down, then it may be very inefficient. Unfortunately, it did not work under the previous superintendent. And if we want to go ahead and support our superintendent, we need to trust that he's going to move our school district forward. So, that's really all I have to say for now. But I would be comfortable moving forward with this recommended org chart only because it's supporting our superintendent, and we will hold him accountable, and we will have an opportunity to look at the progression that we have in next year's budget. This is something we can afford. This is something that's going to be beneficial to our school district, and this is something where it's a progress in motion.
I'll go first. That's a couple words, and I'll go around the room again. I would agree with much of what Mr. Bahu said. Mr. Superintendent, this is what your recommendation is. This is how you best feel can serve the students going forward.
It is. It's taking into account my own Public Works and the committee's recommendations. To Mr. Bahu's point, it may be lost in the mix here. There are 8, I counted them. We are cutting 8 central office administrator positions, 8, right now, over and above these other positions. They're not counting those. So I am reducing central office. I've given you a response to motion that offers to, if you combine them, have 3 assistant superintendents. It's not the number. It's about being efficient. And I've not yet heard why should we reduce the number of superintendents. I'm willing to do it. I'm giving you that. But is it for cost savings? Is it for efficiency? I've not been given any further direction to give you a different plan than the one I've given you. There are additional central office positions, 8 of them being cut beyond the ones in suspense, beyond the ones that we may be restoring tonight. And, that's diminishing central office, not expanding it.
Thank you. And if I could just finish up. If this is a recommendation of the superintendent and we hired him to be the superintendent, and he thinks is the best way to get the job done to the best ability of the Lowell Public School System, why we keep putting roadblocks up in front of him? That's a part that it seems that we're more trying to set him up to fail than we are to support him. And that's just my opinion on it. I would second Mr. Bauer's motion of taking a vote on this organizational chart this evening to move forward. Ms. Doherty has already said that the longer we put off these positions not being posted and hired, it puts the school system in a further detriment to help serving our kids. I would like to, at least for us, to vote on the recommended chart from the superintendent. If that passes, we can move on. If not, then we can send them back with, even more suggestions. It seems like we're going to be doing this over and over and over again because for some reason it's just not satisfying certain people. Ms. Doherty?
Thank you. And I just would like to say, I'm sorry. I just wanted to say that in response to Mr. Bahu's comments about looking at this again, I definitely would be looking at this again and early on in the budget season. But if 2 adjustments could be made, I would be able to support this. One is to pull HR out of operations and have it be a direct report to you. I've seen that kind of structure. It goes right to the superintendent. The other one is I think that special education needs to be with the staff council, needs to be with student support services, and maybe we can look at some of those other roles, like, because the PRG report also recommended that FRC be part of student services. So that kind of tweaking of the role has to be done before we do the job descriptions and do the posting. But the big stickler for me is we need human resources out of operations. It does not belong in operations.
Ms. Doherty, is that a motion?
Yes.
Motion to move HR to...
I don't.
Hold on a second. Ms. Doherty was speaking about making 2 changes to the chart in order to support it.
Well, I think...
We have not finished talking.
We're not going to take a vote yet. Everybody get the chance. So we're a ways away from that, unfortunately.
I would think that I could see it under the school leadership assistant superintendency with Family Resource Center going to student services, which was also recommended in the report. I don't see why adult ed would have to go under student leadership, but I think that for me, the stickler is find a place that makes sense for human resources.
Mr. Bauer, you okay with that amendment to your motion?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Comments? Mr. Lay?
I am living on another planet.
Do you want to?
No, I want you to go, and then I'd love a chance to talk at some point.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just have a feeling that my colleague did not understand what I was saying. I take it back. I want to have a second chance to say what I wanted to say. By looking at this, our service is the same. We don't increase any services, but we add one more assistant superintendent. That costs maybe $150,000 for the same service that we currently have. Because all of these services we have already in here. And Mr. Skinner, I feel your pain to direct you to add one more position, but then have it less than one than what you already have. There's no way you could do that. You ask him to add one more position, and then you say, I wanted one less. So by looking at this, I see that the student support services is maybe $150,000 worth of position. Is a new position created, but the service is the same as what we have right now, because under this position, all the services we already have. So I don't see the urge of having this position at this point.
Read the report.
I'm not denying that we don't have it sometime in the future. But if you take all the fact that we've been talking about, everything that we've been talking about in the past, we want to see down the road what we want to see happening. I see that this position could be added later, but not at this point. And that's why I say that this student support services is a new position that just has no need at this point. And I would recommend, if I could, recommend superintendent to leave the equity where it is right now and not change it yet. So that's what I would recommend. But I know I don't get the support because nobody see the same way that I'm seeing. But what I see is this new position is $150,000 for doing the same service that we already have. We just add one more chief and for the same services. That's my comment.
Okay.
You want to respond to that first? Or you want
thank you.
Ms. Martin, go ahead.
Thank you very much. I think if we look at the recommended central org chart as kind of our new starting point, if we, and by we I mean me, except that there's not the will of the body to move forward to eliminate the one of the assistant superintendencies. I would agree that there are significant shifts that should happen that would make this a more comprehensive and more effective chart. The idea that staff council is separated from special education, that is, I mean, I don't know what staff council does but special education. So if you know, I think it makes perfect sense for them to be together. I think special education was the core of student support services when it existed before. I don't see where technology necessarily needs to be in academics. That is something that could be managed in operations and or finance for that matter. I think that the, you know, I look at the assistant superintendent of finance, I'm assuming they do budgeting. I'm assuming they're responsible for that. Not just grants, payroll, and purchasing. I mean, that being the fundamental part of that role, why I don't know why it's not included there. I think someone else had mentioned, I mean, adult education, having that as part of school leadership doesn't make any sense to me at all. If you were moving HR and the teacher academy into that area, moving back towards having assistant superintendent basically for personnel and staffing, I think linking those like things together make the most sense. Early childhood too. I mean, that had functioned in student support services. I mean, again, trying to balance out these, you know, these, you know, challenging areas so that they are spread across and so that like things are together. If you're telling me that you did this because, you know, which is not unheard of to do something based on the strengths of people in the position, you're now in a position where you have empty positions. So it makes sense to build something that actually makes sense and do that across the board. You know, I think we just, you know, need to move forward. If the will of the body is that we're just going to keep these 6 positions and move forward, I would only hope, and I can only, you know, anticipate that we'll see them deployed more effectively.
So the motion by Mr. Bauer was amended by Ms. Gordon. Madam Clerk, can you do that, please?
To approve the superintendent's recommended organizational chart, to move human resources out of operations, and to move special education under student support services.
Secretary?
Yes. Do we want to move the Family Resource Center too? And put that under student services as well? Do you want to have some leeway with those other moves?
I think
Mr. Superintendent?
Very much so, Ms. Doherty. It's difficult. It's difficult for me. I'm an experienced educator working with experienced people at central office. Ms. Desmond had a part in this. Ms. Phillips, Dr. Hall, Ms. Crocker. We debated this. I came up with this the first version, and they slammed parts of it, and they moved things around based on their expertise. And I made a list of all their recommendations, and I redid it, making adjustments based on all their expertise, right? I'm not diminishing or denying what you're asking for tonight, but it's just really, really hard. It's like if I was looking at a car engine right now and you asked me to improve the performance of the car, would I start with the spark plugs or would I pull out some, you know, I wouldn't know what I was doing. And we have educational experts work. We can adjust this, yes, we can adjust it, but will it fit and will it make sense based on the recommendations of the committee members tonight? I don't know if Family Resource Center would be better off in a different place. I understand you're calling for human resources to be separated. it would require a little bit of thought and study. I want to agree and I want to acquiesce to what the committee members' concerns and recommendations are. But if you're remodeling your house,
But in all fairness,
yes,
Superintendent Skinner, we have been talking about this since you joined as an interim superintendent, that we had to do a serious reorganization, that student services was lacking in consolidated.
It's here, Ms. Doherty.
That we needed to do work in human resources. This is not but now we find ourselves at the 11th hour, and I don't want to, as the mayor mentioned, delay being able to put those positions out, but I'm not going to do a half-hearted thing that then we're going to live with. And I'm not going to not do it. So,
if it helps to be clear, Ms. Doherty, I understand that the committee would like special education to be under student support services and human resources to be a direct report to the superintendent. I can commit to those changes. Thank you.
That's what the motion on the floor is.
okay.
Okay. No, right. Is yes.
So the motion reads right now, to approve the superintendent's recommended organizational chart and to move the human resources out of operations and to move special education under student support services and FRC and student support services as well. Do you want me to include putting HR as a direct report to the superintendent? How do you're throwing a lot of stuff in.
If I may, Ms. Sheehan, if you tell me it has to be that Family Resource Center is under student support services, now I'm worried that will be overloaded. Can we take a look at that, please? Thank you.
So you're striking Family Resource Center?
Yes, we're going to.
Mr. Bahu, is that okay with you?
Yeah, we'll take the Family Resource Center out under it, give the superintendent an opportunity to advise us.
I know, but I have to ask Mr. Bahu, it's his motion, so.
And I think the motion says just that HR comes out from operations.
Correct.
If it ultimately is a direct report to the superintendent.
That can be determined.
Or under leadership, he can determine that.
So, Mr. Bahu, that's okay if I strike FRC?
Yes. To move.
Thank you.
Yep.
Mr. Call?
Give him that opportunity
sure.
to explore.
Great.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think that when we take a look at this, it certainly is a lot of confusion. Everyone has their own input, whether it's staff or school committee and so forth. And I think that we're hoping that we get it right tonight. However, if we don't, what is our wiggle room to tweak something if it has to be changed? And we take a look and say, we put this over here, we thought it would work, however, it's not working. So do we have some safeguards that we can make these changes if we find that there are issues that we didn't realize? And if one particular area is overloaded or it's not working correctly, what do we have here that we can use to fall back on in case?
I think
we don't want to have a system and we look and say, oh well, it's not working that well. I guess we're going to wait until the next budget.
Okay.
We can't do that.
Excellent point, Mr. Conway. I agree with you, Mr. Superintendent. If what happens, Mr. Conway's example, you're coming to us right away with the concerns?
Correct.
Thank you. Roll call?
Mr. Bahu?
Yes.
Mr. Conway?
Yes.
Mr. Rossi? No. Ms. Doherty?
Yes.
Mr. Lay? No. Ms. Martin? Present? Mayor Rourke?
Yes.
4 yeas, 2 nay, 1 present. Approved.
All right. Where are we next?
I would so, okay, so, I would suggest we start with the suspense account.
Yeah.
And we start with, the district webmaster was approved at the last meeting, so we're gonna start with district-wide summer program.
So just before we start all together, Ms. Conway, 1 second. I just want to go back to the superintendent. All these positions that you have that will place in a suspense account, Are they, you could confidently fund all positions for the next academic year?
Yes.
All right, Mr. Conway?
Yeah, just a quick question to you, Mr. Mayor, to the superintendent. When we take a look at district summer program, could you explain what we're doing there with that?
Are you referring to this document?
So you have $1 million going, what is?
Yes.
Can you explain it for the public? What
Sure.
are we doing there?
So in the district budget, what we call the local budget, there was $1 million set aside to pay for summer school this summer. When the budget was discussed on May 4th, Mr. Conway, Ms. Martin made a motion to have us explore if that $1 million could be paid through ESSER instead of the local budget.
Right.
And we did that, and it was a really great idea, and we were able to make that work.
Okay, so that's coming out of SM.
Correct.
Right? Okay. Yeah, right. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah, I know we asked Mr. Superintendent earlier about the funding for all the positions. We have a number of them to vote on. Do you want to take it one by one? Do you want to ask questions on each and every one, how you want to do it? Ms. Doherty?
I think we could, since we just agreed to the organizational chart, I think we could take all the assistant superintendent positions as one, unless,
Yeah, I think we just approved all of them with that
right,
vote.
all the assistant
Yeah.
superintendent in one vote. For some of these other ones, I'm just wondering if we can get more information or.
Okay,
I-
we go one by one, it's fine, no problem. Yeah.
Here's my concern. We built this budget on $1 million for summer school that we're not going to have next year. So I want to be thoughtful about what positions we keep in some of these areas. Thank you. I would make that as a motion to take the assistant superintendent for operations, academic, student support services, and school leadership.
Yeah, we just voted on that, we're all set with that. We just approved the chart.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so we'll go with that. So the next one would be the district-wide. Yeah.
I mean, we can take a vote if she wants.
No, it's okay. All right.
Suspense account.
Okay, sure, all right. So, you want
To move
to,
all assistant superintendents out of suspense account.
okay.
I think we have to make a motion to move them out of the suspense.
By Ms. Doherty, seconded by Mr. Bahu. Roll call.
Mr. Bahu?
Yes.
Mr. Conway?
Yes.
Mr. Rossi? Yes. Ms. Doherty?
Yes.
Mr. Lay? Yes. Ms. Martin? Yes. Mayor Rourke?
Yes.
7 yeas.
Next, we need a motion to move the district-wide summer program out of the suspense account into the general fund. Sure, we need to maybe discussion this one. Motion by Mr. Conway, second by Mr. Bahu. Discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Bahu?
Yes.
Mr. Conway?
Yes.
Mr. Rossi? Ms. Doherty?
Yes.
Mr. Lay? Ms. Martin? Mayor Rourke?
Yes.
7 yeas.
Next, need a motion to move social worker, family resource center out of the suspense account to the general fund. Need a motion by Mr. Rossi, second by Mr. Conway. Comments? Roll call.
Mr. Bahu?
Yes.
Mr. Conway?
Yes.
Mr. Rossi? Ms. Doherty?
Yes.
Mr. Lay? Ms. Martin? Mayor Rourke?
Yes.
6 yeas, 1 absent.
No harm in sizing it up, Mr. Lay. Need a motion to move 4 community school coordinators out of the suspense account to the general fund. Motion by Mr. Conway, second. By Ms. Doherty. Any comments? Questions? Mr. Bahu?
I was under the impression that you were just trying to save one
Yeah.
of those positions.
But all
For
four
the
were
one at the high school.
Correct.
The 4 community school coordinators. I don't know that we're still allowing the principals to make that decision if they need a community school coordinator. But we did have a nice conversation during our May 4th budget meeting about having the community school coordinator stay at the high school. So I'm looking to just move on that one and then leave the other 3 up to the principals to make the decisions if they choose to want to have those.
Okay. So motion by Mr. Bahu to move 1 out of suspense into the general fund, leave the other 3 in the suspense account. Superintendent?
If I may,
Yeah, high
I
school.
think
I second that.
Yeah, I think the motion, if I may say so, I think what you're looking for is to move the community schools coordinators line, all of that line, from the suspense account into the general fund. That would achieve what you're looking for in terms of just the principals who've chosen to keep the community schools managers would be keeping them, and the position at the high school would be restored. We've agreed to that. So in other words, I think to accomplish what you're seeking, you need to move. Yeah, right. Yeah.
So we have you have a motion by Mr. Conway, Ms. Doherty, to just approve the 4.
Yes, Mr. Rossi, go ahead.
Can I just ask, when we take the FRC social worker from wherever it is to the general account, we're taking that position away?
No, we're adding it back.
We're adding it back. Okay, all right.
Is
good.
that a position that we currently have?
The community schools manager at the high school?
No, at the FRC, at the social.
No, at the FRC was a position that we had previously in the district, but it's not been in existence for the last few years.
So we're reinstating
Correct.
it. Yes. Okay.
And we already approved that, correct?
Thank
All right,
you.
roll call.
Mr. Bahu?
Yes.
Mr. Conway?
Yes.
Mr. Rossi?
Yes.
Ms. Doherty?
Yes.
Mr. Lay? Yes. Ms. Martin? Mayor Rourke?
Yes.
6 yeas, 1 absent.
Mr. Superintendent?
I think Ms. Doherty has a question.
Yeah, Mr. Doherty, go ahead.
So there are 2 lists, and they overlap. The committee chose to put some positions in suspense. In the original budget, we cut some positions. There's an overlap, but so there are 2 lists. We're working our way through the suspense right now, and then we'll come to the other ones afterwards.
Moving on. I need a motion to move 2 district support specialist student supports out of the suspense account to the general fund. Need a motion? By Ms. Doherty, seconded by Mr. Rossi. Comments, Mr. Bahu?
Sorry, I actually wanted to ask a question.
Sure.
I mean, I'm fine to, so I noticed in the report, the PRG report, they recommended eliminating these positions. Are these currently filled?
Which positions, Ms. Doherty?
The district support specialists?
I don't know what report recommended that they'd be eliminated.
Maybe I'm thinking about, the math, and that's a different role.
That's right.
So did we eliminate those positions?
Those positions are on this list. You have a choice on those ones.
Okay, so that's not what we're talking about here. I apologize. These were just district support specialists. Got it. Okay. My question answered.
Mr. Bahu?
Sure, so what do these district support specialists do?
So the district support specialists do a range of things in response to parent concerns. So, for instance, Mr. Bahu, if a parent is concerned that their child was being bullied at school and they've dealt with the school and they're not satisfied with the principal's response to their issue, they can call the district support specialist and they will intervene on the parent's behalf.
And we need 2?
So there are 3 currently. We had proposed to reduce one of them and make it 2 going forward, but the committee had concerns about that. And just for transparency, I should say, these positions have traditionally existed in the Student Support Services Office, and I believe it's the will of some of the committee at least that they be restored to the Student Support Services Office. We do have the funds to restore the positions. One is being restored.
1 is being restored.
There are 2 remaining, and there was 1 being cut. The proposal and the suspense account, if we're to take it out, would be restoring the 3rd.
Restoring 1.
Correct.
Yes, I think when we made motions that May 4th, we put the entire line into suspense account, correct?
That's right.
Right.
Roll call.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Bahu?
Yes.
Mr. Conway? Yes. Ms. Del Rossi?
Yes.
Ms. Doherty?
Yes.
Mr. Lay? Yes. Ms. Martin? Yes. Mayor Rourke?
Yes.
7 yeas.
So, a motion to move CLSP contractor services out of the suspense account into the general fund. Need a motion to do so? By Ms. Martin. Is there a second?
I have a question on it.
I don't have a second yet. Okay. Second by Ms. Doherty. Go ahead, Ms. Doherty. Mr. Rossi, go ahead.
I just am curious as what's included under there. Seems like it's a lot of teacher professional development and so forth that is included under that line item, and just wanting to make sure that things are listed where they're supposed to be. If you go through, like what is listed.
Sure. Committee members, Ms. Phillips put together a listing of the items funded under that. It was on the, excuse me.
Mr. Superintendent, this is the $30,000 for the task force was in this contractor services too. Is that what it was?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, so
Yeah.
it, sorry.
Oh, thanks. Comments or questions?
I think it's quite a bit of money, $232,000. And I guess I do know because we had the Fortaleza group met and presented to us. I know what some of that is going for directly. Other things I don't. I would be open to, if the superintendent wants to provide us more information on this tonight or at a later date, we could leave it in the suspense account. I mean, I think we're trying to get to the bottom line so we can move our budget forward, but I wouldn't want to be cutting or keeping things in without having a better understanding of what some of these line items refer to. Thank you.
At your discretion, Ms. Doherty, Ms. Phillips can give further detail tonight, or we can provide a more detailed report at your discretion. Ms. Phillips is available if you want to ask questions tonight.
I was just quickly at it. A lot of these expense items on here, they seem very worthwhile to me. They seem to do a lot of positive in the district. Diverse teacher retention, affinity group meetings. Again, the task force we talked about earlier, the Heritage Month facilitation, anti-racism student summit, ethnic group outreach. I mean, books and materials. Ms. Phillips, anything you want to add about it? Did you put this list together?
No, it's aligned with the goals that were set for the office.
Yeah. We'll do a roll call vote and go from there. Go ahead.
Actually, if I could just follow
Sure,
up
yep.
with a question. So when we're looking at the CLSP workshops, and I'm just wondering, are those ones directed to leadership in the district or teachers? Who are actually the participants of those workshops?
Those are teachers.
So my understanding is with some of these, we've had very low attendance, and it doesn't mean we shouldn't be doing them. I think we need to be working to get more of our teachers attending. But I've gotten emails saying, in a way of frustration, why were there only 6 people who attended this workshop and things like that. So I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
So the training was rolled out as a pilot on a voluntary basis. So that is part of the learning process of how do we get more teachers on a voluntary basis to trainings, given the limited amount of professional development that we have.
And I have heard very good things about the professional development around this, but I mean, I'm looking at the workshop round 1 that was done in March, $20,000. What was that spent on?
I don't have the document in front of me. So one was we paid teachers to come to the training. So teachers have a contracted rate for professional development. So that was one piece. And the second is the facilitator. One thing in a pilot is that you have to try it and then you improve.
Right.
The first
two, the stronger candidates, we need you to go by yourself now. Let's see how it works by yourself. And so, anytime you roll out something new that hasn't happened before, you have to make room for you set a target goal, it's a little bit of a risk, and then you improve. And so that was one of the areas of improvement. We'll get the feedback from the facilitators, having it feel for you to go in and lead your colleagues on a content area. That's not easy, right? And if it's successful, and the people who were trained say, this worked really well for us, maybe we continue forward with just one facilitator.
Right. Okay. So I guess I think that these do sound like very important things, that we're trying to change our culture. But I am looking at, like, that example I gave you, 20,000 for the participants and 8,500 for 2 facilitators. I'm assuming that was one CLSP workshop. So that's at $29,000. And what was the highest attendance that we had? What was the attendance at that March meeting? Did 13 teachers show up, or, so I'd be looking to get more information on these going forward, and I don't know if my colleagues want to wait. Those details? Okay.
It was charted out, and it's like, from what I saw and from what Ms. Phillips is explaining, like, you have to get them hooked, or you have to get teachers interested in it. And it was in the last meeting packet of expenditures of what was paid out to teachers who engaged in these classes from various districts. So it's all kind of clicking with me now. But it's a way to get teachers within the district to help progress the rest of the teacher population. And that's what we desperately need, honestly. And yes, so if you want to go back to the last meeting,
So we have, the motion was first and seconded. Roll call.
Mr. Bahu?
Yes.
Mr. Conway?
Yes.
Mr. Rossi?
yes.
Ms. Doherty?
Yes.
Mr. Lay?
Yes.
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
Mayor Rourke?
Yes.
7 yeas.
Next up, need a motion to move the capital improvements out of the suspense account to the general fund. By Ms. Martin, second by Mr. Bahu. Comments? Roll call.
Mr. Bahu?
Yes.
Mr. Conway?
Yes.
Mr. Rossi?
Yes.
Ms. Doherty?
Yes.
Mr. Lay? Ms. Martin? Mayor Rourke?
Yes.
7 yeas.
Need a motion to accept the recommendation of the superintendent and to, hold on a second, is that just for this? We have, we're going to do these first.
Oh.
You want to do those ones first?
No, we're going to accept the bottom line of the suspense count, then we go into those, because those are general fund.
Okay, I got you. All right, so we wrapped up the suspense account, so I need a motion to accept the recommendation of the superintendent and to approve the bottom line figure and its suspense account.
Does the superintendent have the bottom line?
Yep. No, we're going to do those. Those are
So
those are in general fund, yeah.
the bottom line in the suspense account is currently $150,000. That's the $150,000 that's on the second line of the page you're looking at. It's the one that we set aside for raises. So that $150,000 is all that remains in the suspense account, and that's the total.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. By Ms. Doherty, seconded by Ms. Martin. Roll call.
Mr. Bahu?
Yes.
Mr. Conway?
Yes.
Mr. Rossi?
Yes.
Ms. Doherty?
Yes.
Mr. Lay? Ms. Martin? Mayor Rourke?
Yes.
7 yeas.
Okay, next, back to the general fund, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Motion to reinstate the Director of Research and Accountability to the general fund. Motion by Ms. Doherty, seconded by Mr. Bahu. We're doing a Director of Research and Accountability. It's been first and seconded. Yep. Yes, sir. Roll call.
Mr. Bahu? Mr. Conway? Mr. Rossi?
Yes.
Ms. Doherty?
Yes.
Ms. Delay? Ms. Martin? Mayor Rourke?
Yes.
7 yeas, approved.
Motion to reinstate the the district support specialist student support to the general fund. Need a motion? Mr. Superintendent?
Excuse the interruption. That position is already restored because that's one of the ones that overlapped with the suspense account, and so you've restored that position already.
Terrific. Next up, need a motion to reinstate the district curriculum specialist math to the general fund.
I just wonder what it is.
Which one?
The
Right. So first, I'm sorry, the district support secretary, or the one we're doing now, the curriculum specialist for math.
Right.
Okay. So we need just a first and a second. Think, ask any question you'd like. By Mr. Lay, second by Ms. Martin. Mr. Lay.
What is that position?
Thank you, Mr. Lay.
Well,
So, in the curriculum office, if I might take the liberty of talking about both those two positions, one is for math and one is for science and social studies. So in Miss Desmond's department under curriculum, we make decisions about what the curriculum should be, what materials are used, and so forth. And then there are trainings involved for materials that are chosen so teachers use the materials appropriately. These positions are supporting schools and teachers in classrooms and in meetings, at professional development meetings, to use the materials appropriately. And because it was mentioned earlier on that we admire Miss Desmond's work, these are positions that Miss Desmond strongly supports and believes are necessary.
Okay.
Roll call.
Mr. Bahu?
Yes.
Mr. Conway?
Yes.
Ms. Del Rossi?
Yes.
Ms. Doherty?
Yes.
Ms. Delay?
Yes.
Ms. Martin? Mayor Rourke?
Yes.
7 yeas, approved.
Motion to reinstate the district curriculum specialist science/social studies to the general fund. Yeah, motion by Mr. Bahu, second by Ms. Del Rossi. Questions, comments? Roll call.
Mr. Bahu?
Yes.
Mr. Conway?
Yes.
Ms. Del Rossi?
Yes.
Ms. Doherty? Ms. Delay?
Yes.
Ms. Martin? Mayor Rourke?
Yes.
7 yeas, approved.
Yeah. Motion to reinstate the parent academy director to the general fund. Motion by Ms. Martin, second by Ms. Del Rossi. Roll call. I'm sorry, Mr. Bahu.
I'll
Go
have
ahead.
a question. I think this goes to the equity officer. Just, could you share with us what the Parent Academy Director does? Would love to hear it.
So this year, we had a focus on building parent skills around engaging.
No one can hear you.
Thank you. Thank you. This year, we had funding to support outreach to families to build their knowledge and understanding around how to engage with schools in the school system. So our Director of Parent Engagement largely was involved in rolling out several specific academies for families. One was the Survival English. It was called Survival English because that was kind of the incentive to get families there. But when families came, they really learned English around how to be successful in the school system, right? So if you need to call around attendance or sickness or ask to create an appointment with your family, like that was the content of the curriculum. All of the families who came, and there were hundreds of families who participated, all multilingual families. One of their goals was they had to make an appointment with their school. Many of the families had never gone to the school before. And so that was the goal of this year, was really giving parents that confidence to engage in their child's school. We also had the Family Institute for Student Success, where we taught families around how to support their child on a college and career pathway. We had family trips to college, because if you're a first-generation college goer, we take for granted that families know how to plan for college. Those were some of the key signature areas that that our director worked on. For next year, we are looking to work very closely with schools, especially with the district having a literacy priority. It's really critical for there to be family-school partnership in literacy. And so we already have plans in mind around how do we support families with home literacy that accompanies what the students are doing in the classroom.
Okay, sounds like there's a lot done within that office, and we know that I've met with you, and we talked about recruiting students and such like that, and I'm hoping that the academy director could be a part of that as well. I know moving forward, we'd like to go ahead and get the best value for what we're paying for, and thank you for, the survival English and recruiting parents and helping them and so on and so forth. I'm willing to approve this, but, I know next year there may be budget cuts, so we have to really, get the best value that we can. So, thank you for that.
Roll call?
Mr. Bahu?
Yeah.
Oh, please, yeah.
Mr. Conway? Mr. Rossi? Ms. Doherty?
Yes.
Mr. Lay?
Yes.
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
Mayor Rourke?
Yes.
7 yeas.
All right. I need a motion to approve the Lowell Public Schools FY 2025 final bottom line figure of $257,347,416 to be submitted to the city manager. By Mr. Rossi, seconded by...
Then can I ask a question?
Yes, whatever you like. Yes, ma'am. Seconded by Ms. Doherty. Mr. Rossi?
Yes, I just have a question, and I missed it before when we were just entering the meeting. But why are we transferring $1.5 million to the supply line if there's only 4 weeks of school left? And will we not meet our net spending for the schools?
Thank you, Mr. Rossi. We're anxious to use the funds that we have remaining for FY24, and one of the prudent ways to do that is to pre-purchase supplies for next year. So there's money in accounts that we don't think will be expended. If we move it to supplies, we can begin to pre-purchase supplies.
Roll call.
Mr. Bahu?
Yes.
Mr. Conway?
Yes.
Mr. Rossi? Ms. Doherty? Mr. Lay? Ms. Martin? Mayor Rourke?
Yes.
7 yeas.
Great. Thank you, everybody, for the hard work, input. The superintendent appreciates it. Motion to adjourn by Mr. Conway, second by Ms. Martin. Good evening.
Thank you.
Same to me.